Hello, I'm Orla and I'm super excited to be sharing a thought of the day with you today. So today's thought of the day came to me a few days ago as I was writing an essay about Joshua and about Joshua's leadership. And as I was reading through the book of Joshua, I was reminded about how many times it says, be strong and courageous. And I was thinking to myself, why does this say it so many times? Like, why is this a repeated phrase that God speaks over Joshua so many times? And then I felt like God say to me, that's because that's what Joshua needed to hear. And in that moment, I sort of had this thought process about that's what Joshua needed to hear. And 3 points came to me. So the first being, I was just reminded in that moment about how big and powerful and awesome our God is. The fact that the God who was with Joshua in his weakness, who spoke into his weakness wholeheartedly, God was all with, the whole of God was with Joshua, is the same God that is with me through my weaknesses and my struggles and helps me through today, tomorrow and the next day, and is the same God who is wholeheartedly with you in your weaknesses and helps you through today, tomorrow and the next day as well. And I was like, oh my goodness, how good and big is our God that he can wholeheartedly be with each and every one of us, and he can know us and he loves us the same amount. And I was like, wow, God is so good. So that's the first point, just how good God is. The second point is that God knew Joshua's weakness, and he knew Joshua's weakness even before Joshua really knew it was his own weakness. And it wasn't something that shocked or made God afraid. It wasn't like, oh, Joshua, you've got a bit of a weakness there, mate. Let's move on, let's hide it, let's cover it up. But actually, that God knew Joshua's weakness. And that leads me on to the third point of God spoke into Joshua's weakness. And he didn't just speak into it once, he spoke into it again and again and again, because that's what Joshua needed to hear. That it wasn't something that God did just brush over and say, oh, by the way, you should be strong and courageous. But actually, God declared it over Joshua's life again and again and again. And that idea of God declaring something over your weakness is something that I would really like to bring into today. What is God speaking into your weakness? For me, I know that one of my real weaknesses is trying to seek my acceptance and my worth in other people, in friendships I have, in any sort of relationship or anything that I have. I always try and seek my worth in other people. So one thing that I think that God's speaking over my weakness is that my worth comes from him, or that I am loved so much that I don't need to seek my worth in other people. And I just really encourage you to spend some time this morning to really ask God, what is he speaking into your weakness? Firstly, ask God, what is your weakness if you don't know? Spend some time focusing, actually, and that's a really uncomfortable thing for us to do, to sit and focus on our weaknesses. It's not something that we are told to do very often, but I would really encourage you to do that, to spend some time focusing on your weakness and asking God what he is speaking over that, and allow him to speak it over you again and again and again, just as he did for Joshua. And as I was thinking about this idea of weaknesses and us addressing our weaknesses, because I think in the culture that we live in today, it's very easy for us to go, oh no, a weakness, I'm not going anywhere near that, quick, let's move on, let's pretend it's not there, let's cover it up with so many other things, or with busyness of life, or with other relationships, or with whatever it is, that we just cover up our weaknesses. And I was reminded of the passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 8 to 10, which says that God's power is made perfect in our weakness. So we should boast in that weakness, because that's when God's power is made perfect. And so I would really encourage you today to address today with the mindset of, yes, I have weaknesses, and yes, I bring them before God. And I ask him to speak over them. I ask him to speak his truth into that. And I'm going to boast in those weaknesses, because I know that that's when God's power is made strong. So yeah, I just encourage you to spend some time with God this morning, asking him to speak over you, and listen to it, and really know that that is the truth about who God created you to be. And if you think it would be beneficial, then maybe write it in the comments below, that phrase or that sentence that God is speaking over you. So that we can all be praying through it together, and that it can be a community that we lift each other up and we build each other up, and actually we address our weaknesses, and we know that through our weaknesses God is made strong. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a blessed day, whatever today may hold, and I I hope that you allow God to speak so much truth into you today.